to Lazarus. Though I loathe to admit it, time, if such a thing can even be counted here, has a way of eroding one's pretense and exposing truths long ignored. And so, compelled by the gnawing despair that consumes me, I write today on the matter of pride and arrogance, those twin pillars that upheld the house of my ruin. Oh, how proud I was, Lazarus. Proud of my wealth, my influence, my power over others. I adorned myself in fine linen and feasted sumptuously every day, not merely as a means of indulgence, but as a declaration of my superiority. Pride whispered in my ear, assuring me that I was deserving of all that I possessed, and more. Arrogance, her faithful handmaiden, taught me to look down upon those who lacked, as though their poverty were a defect of character rather than circumstance. You, Lazarus, were to me nothing but a pitiable shadow at my gate, an inconvenience to be ignored. How wretchedly blind I was. Pride convinced me that my station in life was self-made, the fruit of my own brilliance and effort, while I scorned to acknowledge the hand of God in every breath I drew. I lived as though I were the master of my destiny, never once bowing my head in gratitude or seeking wisdom beyond my own narrow understanding. Do you remember, Lazarus, how I refused you even the scraps from my table? My arrogance was so deeply entrenched that I saw your need as beneath my notice, your suffering as irrelevant to my comfort. And yet, as I now endure this torment, I wonder, was it not you who possessed true wealth? Yours was the treasure of humility, of dependence upon God, while mine was but a counterfeit, a fleeting vapor destined to dissipate. What bitter irony it is that my pride has been utterly stripped away, leaving me exposed and hollow. Here, in this place of eternal regret, there is no room for pride, only the endless knowledge of how I squandered every opportunity to turn from it. How I long for even a moment to undo my arrogance, to humble myself before the God I so brazenly ignored. But alas, the door is shut, and the consequences of my folly are irrevocable. Tell me, Lazarus, do those in the land of the living see the peril of pride? Do they recognize its insidious nature, how it blinds the soul to both God and neighbor? Or do they, as I did, revel in their self-importance, building their lives upon the shifting sands of ego and ambition? If only I could cry out to them, to warn them of the eternal cost of such vanity. But my voice is silenced, my testimony unheard. You who dwell in the light of God's mercy must know this truth in full. Perhaps you can speak of it to those who yet walk the earth, that they might learn to reject pride and embrace the humility that leads to life. In unending regret, Dives.
To Dives, who laments in eternal torment, your inquiry compels me to reflect on the nature of pride and its dreadful distinction as one of the greatest sins against God. It is not merely the ruin of man, but an affront to the very order of creation and the character of the Creator himself. Let me endeavor to explain why pride stands so uniquely opposed to the holiness of God. First, pride is the root from which all other sins grow. It was the sin of Lucifer, the most radiant of angels, who desired to ascend above the throne of God.
I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will set my throne on high.
In this rebellion, pride sought to dethrone God, rejecting his rightful authority as Creator and Lord. Is it not telling, Dives, that the first sin to fracture the perfection of heaven itself was pride? From this corrupted seed sprang all disobedience, and it continues to bear bitter fruit in the hearts of men. Moreover, pride is the sin that most directly denies the truth of who God is and who we are in relation to Him. At its core, pride declares independence from God. It asserts that we are sufficient in ourselves, that our wisdom, strength, or achievements render us as gods in our own right. It usurps the glory that belongs to God alone and turns the creature against the Creator. What greater insult can there be than to reject the one who formed us from the dust and sustains us in every moment? The fall of mankind itself was rooted in pride, a grasping for divine knowledge and status that belonged solely to the Creator. When the serpent tempted Eve in the garden, he appealed not to her hunger or her weakness, but to her pride, saying,
"You will be like God, knowing good and evil."
In that moment, she and Adam chose to believe the lie that they could ascend to a wisdom equal to God's, that their created nature could somehow rival the Creator's infinite understanding. It was not enough to walk with God. They sought to be like Him, thus shattering the trust and humility that had defined their perfect fellowship. From that act of pride came the curse that spread to all mankind, a separation from God that only the humility of Christ could bridge. All sin, as the Scriptures teach, stems from three sources: the desires of the flesh, and the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life. These three are the foundations of every evil act and thought. Yet it is pride that so often drives the greatest transgressions. Lust of the eyes and flesh seek to consume, but pride seeks to conquer and exalt the self above all else. It is pride that whispers to the heart, "I deserve, I am entitled, and I will not submit." Even the most grievous acts of sin, murder, theft, rebellion, are often rooted in the prideful refusal to acknowledge God's authority and provision. Pride magnifies every other sin, transforming what might begin as weakness or temptation into willful defiance against the Almighty. Consider also, Dives, how pride blinds the soul. It hardens the heart against repentance and deafens the ear to divine instruction. The proud man sees no need for forgiveness, no room for correction, no cause for gratitude. He stands in defiance of God's grace, refusing to bow his knee, even as the weight of his sin drags him to ruin. Did you not find this to be true in your own life? Though the law and prophets spoke clearly, though my presence at your gate was a silent witness to your neglect, you clung to your arrogance, blind to the truth that might have saved you. What sets pride apart from other sins is that it distorts the very purpose for which man was created. We were made to glorify God, to worship Him, and to find our highest joy in His presence. Pride, however, seeks to glorify self, to make the individual the center of all things. It is a perversion of the created order, a rebellion not only against God's commands, but against His nature. While other sins may be acts of weakness or ignorance, pride is a deliberate elevation of self over God. It is, in essence, the creature saying to the Creator, "I will not serve." Yet there is more. Pride is not merely destructive to the soul. It is infectious to the world. It breeds division, envy, and strife among men. How many wars have been waged? How many families torn asunder? How many lives destroyed because of the pride of one man? Pride does not rest content with self-exaltation. It demands that others recognize its supposed superiority. It tears down its neighbor, spreads falsehoods, and sows discord, all in the service of its insatiable appetite for glory. But hear this, Dives, and let it be a warning to all who might read these words. God resists the proud. This is no light opposition, but a holy and just resistance from the sovereign of all creation. The scriptures declare, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Pride places man in direct enmity with God, for it seeks to strip him of his glory, the very glory that he will not share with another. How then can the proud man stand when God himself becomes his adversary? Yet, even as I recount the weight of this sin, I must not neglect the hope that remains for those who walk the earth. The antidote to pride is humility, and the ultimate example of humility is found in Jesus Christ. Though he was in the form of God, he did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. And being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Christ's humility is the mirror image of pride, and through his sacrifice, he makes a way for the proud heart to be humbled and restored. May the living heed this truth, Dives, and flee from the sin that brought ruin to you and countless others. Let them humble themselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may lift them up in due time. For in humility there is grace, in pride only destruction.